Hi, it's Claudia, and in this video, we are going to focus on building an atmosphere of love in our marriage and in all of our relationships. And for doing this, we are going to take a look at the 5 love languages. So this is a book and a concept developed by the same author of the book that we talked about before, which is When Sorry Isn't Enough. So one of the authors, he is a counselor, marriage counselor, and he has done research over the years and he has compiled it, and he realized that in his marriage counseling practice, people would often complain that, just like it happened with me and my husband. So one person is loving in one way and they are expecting that the things that they do are well received by the other person, but the other person has a different love language. So they understand love through either words or actions or quality time or gifts or physical touch, so hugs and kisses and stuff like this. So what the author has noticed, and I have noticed in my own life, is that usually spouses and partners have different love languages. Or even in the case when they speak the same language, there's usually different dialects. So this means that for the most part, we can misunderstand each other. So even though we are being loving, that doesn't mean necessarily that our spouse or our partner or our children do feel loved. So it's very important, and I have found this just fascinating and amazing and very powerful in my marriage once I learned about the 5 love languages. Just like the 5 apology languages. So imagine just loving someone so much and expressing that to them, and then they just doubt it because they are actually expecting something different. They're not registering really what you're doing because they want something different. They feel loved in a different way. So I have read this book several times, and in the very beginning, this was before I started my inner healing journey. In the very beginning, unfortunately, this book has been a source of arguments in my marriage. And this is because I was focused on the wrong thing. So I read the book, and it is really amazing, and it has opened my eyes to so many things. But then, because of how I was used to from before, which was unhealthy, instead of focusing on what I could do and doing that, I wanted to convince my husband to read the book, to basically process the book in the same way, the exact same way that I did, and to be fascinated by the same things and to express love, to be ready. Okay, I'm ready to do this. But this is not how people work and how relationships work. So in the beginning, I just kind of like nagged him about it. You have to read this book. This is the best book ever. And so on. But he didn't want to do it because he was in a different place on his own emotional inner healing journey. So once I started focusing on healing my own past, I started realizing I had more mental space, so I wasn't fully overwhelmed by my emotions, and I was able to understand that people have to do things in their own timing. So this is what we're focusing on in this series, which I have learned based on so many mistakes that I made trying to get other people to do things so that I felt better. So we'll stop doing that in this series and in the videos that we're having together, because we cannot choose for other people, but we can choose for ourselves. So the 5 love languages. So we are starting today with the first love language, which is words of affirmation. And Another thing that we must understand moving forward, and I am hoping that you will purchase the book and read it for yourself to get all the details. And the author really explained so many things. Like, it was revolutionary for me. But as I said, unfortunately, I started focusing on getting my husband to read it as opposed to just applying it, because the book was written for me, for the reader. So the reader is meant to apply it, not go around and try to convince other people to apply it. So one very important concept is the concept of the love tanks. So kind of like a car that has a fuel tank. So when the tank is empty, obviously the car can't go anywhere. And the author is suggesting that people who don't feel loved also have trouble functioning normally, or they don't really feel up to doing things or doing things for us or being loving towards us or towards themselves or towards other people. So the way that I understand it is that we are multidimensional beings, and we each speak all of the love languages, but we have usually a primary and a secondary that are most important. But we all have the 5 love tanks. And so the author has many versions of this book for children, I think for teenagers. There's a version, God Speaks Your Love Language, which I'm reading right now. And I also read the book, I think it's called Appreciation at Work. So it's about the 5 love languages at work and how we can improve our work lives. And from that version of the book, I realized that basically we all have the 5 love languages, and we have a primary and a secondary, but these can change. They can change over time. They can change depending on the environment. They can change depending on how full each tank is. They can also change depending on the relationship. So for example, with one person, you might have the love languages gifts, maybe because they're a really good gift giver, but not necessarily with other people. So maybe you have words of affirmation with someone else. So we are, in this video series, we're learning all the 5 love languages, and we're aiming to be fluent in all of them because, for example, when there is also a quiz. So when I took the quiz, I scored, I think, acts of service and quality time, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not really acts of service. So when I took the quiz, I must have been focusing on, like maybe I felt like my husband wasn't helping me enough in the house chores and stuff. But really, I actually prefer to do those myself. So the quiz is not very accurate always because of all these moving components. So maybe I was having a bad day and I felt like my husband wasn't helping me enough, and I took the quiz, and then all of those things popped out more obviously. But the idea is that we should observe ourselves and our spouse and our children and our friends and family and see where they stand and what they prefer. And you kind of can just tell, so we don't need them to take the test or to read the book or anything. You can just tell. So what I ended up doing is I just ended up trying out all the different love languages, speaking them to my husband, and then I realized that for him it's acts of service, not words of affirmation as he originally scored in the quiz. So you can definitely take the quiz, but don't take it as something set in stone, because it's not. So words of affirmation, right? So this is so important, and I'm sure that you have already noticed that sometimes, or maybe most of the time, words can be hurtful. So it definitely varies depending on each person. But I think none of us love to hear hurtful words. And I think this is, in general, a very important part of life and part of our emotional skills to speak words that encourage other people and affirm them. So then they don't have to worry about something like this, about being hurt when they're in a relationship with us. And this alone, in my experience, will give them the mental space so they will be able to relax and they won't be like, what's going to happen next? So they will be able to relax, and then they will be able to open up to us, and then we can discover more about them and we can get to know them, which is what relationships are about anyway, right? So it's very interesting because obviously the Bible talks about all the 5 love languages, but the Bible is this huge book and it talks about everything. So I'm really happy that the author took the time, just like with the 5 apology languages. So he took the time to gather the research and to sort it out. And now we have it easier. We have an easier understanding of people, and we can love them easier, and we can have much easier relationships with them. So the scriptures that we are talking about today, there's 2 scriptures, and the first one is Proverbs chapter 18, verse 20 and 21. So, a man's stomach shall be satisfied from the fruit of his mouth. From the produce of his lips he shall be filled. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. So this is so important, the way that the author of this book, Proverbs, is describing that basically our words are like seeds and they will come back to us. So what we want in our relationships, independently of what other people do, we want to plant seeds of life. So words of encouragement, words of affirmation. We want to build people up and not tear them down through our words. Because at least in my life, I have been called names and I have been really kind of like torn down, really. I had this math teacher in high school, and this was really horrendous, and I'm not really sure how this was allowed. I'm guessing just, I don't know, maybe nobody knew or nobody realized the impact that this would have on me. So I had this math teacher, and he would make me stand up at my desk, and he would lecture me in front of everyone else, and he would warn all the other students to not end up like me. And he would just say the most horrible things about me that weren't even true, and he would call me stupid in front of everyone. And nobody said anything, and I was in survival mode because also of the abuse at home, and then this was happening in school as well, and I didn't say anything. But I don't think saying something about it would have made a difference. But I'm hoping you don't have a similar experience. But this happened once per week for 4 years, and I didn't end up believing him that I was stupid, but I did end up trying to prove myself that I am not stupid to other people. So it wasn't that I thought I was stupid. My problem from this ended up being, I thought something maybe in my appearance or my body language made other people think that I'm stupid. And I ended up thinking that it's my job to help them to see that I'm not stupid. So then I just worked overtime trying to prove myself to people. And I think this was a big component of why I ended up a people pleaser. So I didn't want people to think badly of me. So then I would go out of my way to do nice things for people and to be extra helpful, extra prepared, extra everything. So as I said, I hope you don't have anything like this in your life, but words are very important. And they can affect us in ways that sometimes we don't even realize, because I actually already knew that I wasn't stupid, because right before I went to high school, I had this really dramatic experience where I had to learn a lot of math in 30 days because of a whole bunch of reasons. But anyway, so I had to pass an exam. I had to learn 4 years worth of math in 30 days, and I did. So I was able to do that and go up 3 points in my grade. So I started off as not being able to pass the exam at math, and then I was able to be average, so just like everyone else. And that was really incredible, and I always believed that it was by the grace of God, because there's just no way that I could have done it on my own. But I realized after that experience that I wasn't stupid. And then right after that summer, I ended up in this man's class, and then he started calling me stupid over and over and over again for 4 years. So that was really crazy. So I did end up being very influenced by words, and this is just a reality that our words usually have the greatest impact on ourselves. The words that we speak to ourselves and to other people, and especially to children, but also adults. Like, I would not say like, okay, it's a 10, we affect a 10 for children and a 5 for an adult. It depends. And I think it's really wonderful when we make deliberate and intentional effort that our words are encouraging. And one thing that I have learned in my experience is to stop using the words always and never in a negative way. So I used to accuse my husband, you never help me, you always do this. And then that just has a distancing effect, because the other person doesn't feel seen for their efforts, because never and always are never true, or at least for the most part. So it's whatever it is that our spouses are doing. And from the previous video, we know that we're starting a list, and we're thinking and focusing and practicing thinking about the wonderful things that they do. But this is another detail that we should stop using words like always and never, because these ones also have like a negative impact. Unless we want to say, you always make me feel loved, which of course is a good thing. So then we have the second scripture that we're going to focus on today. And this is Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. Let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. And here, edification means the moral or intellectual instruction or improvement of someone. So, we should always speak encouraging words, because like we have been learning so far, condemnation and shame and making people feel bad about themselves or even something that they did, even if it was wrong, is never coming from God. So what we want as Christians, we want to be closer to God. And this is what the Bible is about, how we do that, how we stop separating ourselves from the source of God. And it's by doing the things that the Bible tells us. And then if you're not a Christian, then just keep thinking about who is your ideal self. And I think you will agree that your ideal self does not make other people feel bad about themselves. Not just because it's harmful, but also because it doesn't actually help. Like, it might help to some degree to change behavior, but the relationship is damaged. And if we keep doing it, we're just going to completely break the relationship. And in this regard, so about the teacher that I told you about, and you probably have noticed in your life people who are just they're just so mean, and they just speak hurtful words that you literally do not want to be around them. So this is what happened in the fourth year. I found out that I was able to graduate even though I would, let's say, be sick from school a third of the year. So then what I did was I asked my mother to help me to get fake sick leave so that I don't have to be in that man's class. So words are very powerful, and hopefully we are going to learn, and it's not always easy, really, especially when someone upsets us or offends us, but we need to move forward with our ideal self and the person that we want to be and the person that God intended us to be, so that we don't allow people who do the wrong thing influence us to do something harmful or wrong or unhelpful or just not all right, not healthy. So these are the scriptures that we're going to be focusing on and practicing and meditating. And then I wanted to share with you just a little bit, a couple of quotes from the book, because I have found them really, it's a really wonderful book, and it explains so many things, but we have to read the book for ourselves, as I said. So we cannot focus on, and hopefully by the time you read the book, you have practiced a little bit writing those lists. Because for me, reading the book actually triggered my brain into thinking, but that was wrong. Because as I said, our brains are meant to protect us, so they just remember the bad stuff. So I was just triggered into thinking, oh, my husband doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. But we need to understand that, first of all, we need to educate ourselves about these emotional skills, which we are doing. And then we need to practice them. And then we need to, as the Proverbs verse says, we need to plant the seeds, but then we need to wait for the seeds to start growing. And then they will come back to us at harvest time. I'm not a farmer. I don't know how that works. But we understand that there's a period between planting the seeds and when we get to experience the rewards of our work. So it's not instant. So the first quote is talking about love. And this is so interesting because I had no idea about any of this when I started reading the book. Our most basic emotional need is not to fall in love, but to be genuinely loved by another, to know a love that grows out of reason and choice, not an instinct. And here we have some other things in between. And then in the same chapter, the author says, it is the choice to expend energy in an effort to benefit the other person, knowing that if his or her life is enriched by our effort, you too will find a sense of satisfaction, the satisfaction of having genuinely loved another. So this is what I have learned to focus on. Once my husband said that he wanted a divorce last April, I just turned all the focus on me. And I already mentioned in the other video when we were talking about the apology languages, that book helped me to understand that no matter what other people do, I have an ideal self. So I started focusing on, okay, what is it that I want to do? So what I did in this sense, so first I read this book, like maybe it was January 2019, and then I realized and I started my inner healing journey in April 2019. So then I realized, okay, I have a choice. I have the choice, because I love my husband, I have the choice to express that to him, but I cannot tie myself and my happiness and my peace of mind with what he does in return or how he reacts to it. Because as I said, we're so complex, and this is a process, but it's it's possible that our spouse is just going through a stressful time. So we don't know how long it will take until we can harvest the fruits of our labor, but we cannot give up. We just have to keep going and keep speaking their love language if we know what it is, or all the love languages. But we need to focus on enjoying the speaking and not speaking it to get them to feel something, to get them to say something, to get them to love us back. That's their choice, and we have no control over it. And if we do control it, it's unhealthy. It's through fear or manipulation or stuff like this, and all of it is unhealthy. So we need to let the speaking be enough, and we stop expecting there. So we will do our best to enjoy the speaking, but we're not going to focus on enjoying the results of what we did, because we don't know what they're going through, what they're focused on. We don't know what's in their heart, what they might have gone through that maybe they haven't yet dealt with. So we don't know any of that stuff. So we cannot have a realistic expectation that they should be happy, because maybe they're just not in a position to be happy. But we can work, and this is a practice, we can work on being happy with the offering of the love in the different love languages. And then here's another quote from the book. And this is exactly what I was just talking about, because it's so good. The author is very good at understanding love and marriages. Verbal compliments or words of appreciation are powerful communicators of love. And then a bit later, I am not suggesting verbal flattery in order to get our spouse to do something you want. The object of love is not getting something you want, but doing something for the well-being of the one you love. It is a fact, however, that when we receive affirming words, we are far more likely to be motivated to reciprocate and do something our spouse desires. So, this is words of affirmation. And I just wanted to show you real quick. So, as I said, I started off by writing this list for myself that we talked about in the previous video. And then after May, I think 28th or something, I started writing this list as a thank you love letter to my husband. Okay, and I did this for like 2 months, and here they are, all my love letters. So I just wrote these every morning for my husband, because he scored words of affirmation in the quiz. So we did this for 2 months, and after 2 months, it's possible that his love tank was full, or he realized that maybe words of affirmation are not most effective right now. So then I stopped doing it. I stopped writing the list, but I still affirm him, and I still thank him for the things that he does for me. And I'm pretty sure that you already noticed that when someone thanks you, or you can see that they genuinely appreciate what you do, that then they are far more likely to reciprocate. But we need to keep in mind that the intention is to affirm them. The intention is not to get them to do the thing back. So, the action steps for this video are obviously to speak and write words of affirmation to your spouse and your children and your family and your friends and coworkers and just everyone you can think of. So just practice doing this. And in my case, it kind of took a while to do this, because I have not really received words of affirmation growing up kind of at all, almost. So you might need to practice doing it, but that's fine. You don't have to be Shakespeare or anyone just to write a thank you for, helping me out with this, or taking out the trash, or whatever it was that they were doing, or I don't know, cleaning up their little dresser if your children did that. So whatever it is, you can affirm them, or you can write them a love letter. And I would love to encourage you to do that, and just plant the seeds and then water the seeds with more words of affirmation, and eventually they will feel better, and the relationship will be restored, and it will be an overall transformation of your relationships and yourself and your spouse and your loved ones. And then I will see you in the next video, and we're going to talk about the second love language, which is quality time. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you found this video helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!